Good day, everyone. Hello to everyone in the audience today. Welcome to the UTS panel discussion on practice-based learning in STEM as part of the UTS Internal Virtual Open Week, IVAL. I would like to start with an acknowledgement of country. I am speaking from the land of Bidigal people, and I would like to pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. I'm Barsha Karki, and I will be moderating the panel discussion today. I'm also an alumni of the UTS Faculty of Engineering and IT, and currently work at NetApp as a data solutions engineer. In the panel today, we have Dr. Sam Ferguson, Senior Lecturer, Director for Teaching and Learning Engagement within the Faculty of Engineering and IT, Dr. Sacha Stelzer-Braid, Subject Coordinator, Professional Experience in Biomedical Sciences within the Faculty of Science at UTS, and Yanlin Zhu, who is a recent graduate with Bachelor of Engineering Honours, Civil Engineering, and she's starting a graduate engineering role with WSP Engineering very soon. So I'll start with the first question to the panel. And I'm sure a lot of audience will have this question on top of their mind. So the first question to the panel today: how does work integrated learning and practice-based learning at UTS prepare graduates for the workplace? Perhaps I can start with Dr. Sacha.
Thanks, Barsha, and hi everyone. It's great to see so many people here. So at UTS, we're really passionate about giving you real-world experiences, and all of our teaching is geared in that direction. And so doing an internship gives you access to industry professionals. It helps you to work out whether that's the career path that you want to go down. And it also gives you some soft skills, as well as honing your transferable skills as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Sacha. Dr. Sam, would you like to add a few words to that?
Sure, yeah. So at the Faculty of Engineering and IT, we have a number of different programs, and a lot of them focus on integrating internships and other types of work experience into your degree. What we tend to see is that students may start out with an idea of what their future career may entail that might not really match up with reality. And when they go away on an internship, their priorities change quite a lot. So they come back and they realize that the ability to communicate with a wide audience, being able to give a presentation in front of, say, 20, 30, 50 people, all of whom are possibly more senior than you, is a really important skill. So those types of enterprise skills, that some people might call them, are things that we actually teach within our subjects, and you'll get a lot of opportunities in our subjects to practice those skills. But you'll also get a chance to do that in the workplace as well. The other thing I'll mention is that group collaboration is something that is part of every career these days. There's very few careers where you can go into that job and just work by yourself and not need to talk to anybody else and have a rich and successful career. There are some, but not many. So if you're working in IT, for instance, my home discipline, you may, for instance, consider that you should be able to write a program all by yourself, and that's the job of a programmer. But in fact, there's so many meetings and discussions that go into that process, and there's possibly a lot of arguments and decisions that need to be made where you may not necessarily put forward the idea that you want in the most convincing manner. And so those particular skills, the skill to be able to collaborate with others and work through conflict and through decision processes, are really important to develop. And so that's a part of a huge number of our subjects, that group collaboration experience. So those are two main ways that we focus on developing your skills for the workplace.
Thank you, Dr. Sam. Like, you touched on some really great points, right? You think writing programs, it is your, your assignment and you do it and that's it. But when you actually go out on the working world, given that I have been working for a decade in the industry, there's always peer review, and that's something that we do as part of uni, because you're, generally in a group assignment, or even if you're working on an individual assignment, there's always, you can bounce off ideas, you can have those conversations. I think those skills are really essential when you actually start working, and those are really highly regarded as well, very valuable, because you're working as part of the team, even if you're working on your individual assignments. So that's great. And I would love to hear from Yanlin, given that she is, recently graduated, and what has your experience been in that practice-based learning in uni, but also, in the within your internships or projects that you've been part of?
Firstly, I really appreciate the university give me the opportunity to exposure to the internship that really developed my communication skill, and also working with a team and working with a body. We grow up together on the daily basis, and also the internship give me some industry insights to help me further plan my career goal and career path, which is really helpful now and also in the future. So I think it's really useful. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Yanlin. I wanna ask a follow-up question, and I think Dr. Sam, you kind of touched on it. We were talking about work integrated learning and practice-based learning at UTS, and you gave us some really good examples, but you also very slightly touched on those enterprise skills. So what are enterprise skills, and what enterprise skills, where generally it's known as the soft skills, are employers seeking from graduates? And would love to hear you expand a bit more on that comment that you made, Dr. Sam.
Well, I stole someone else's term for this, unfortunately. But what I point out is not just being able to communicate a single idea, but being able to understand how that idea fits within the organization that you're working with. So organizations have different missions and different focuses. Some are large, some are small. But being able to assist your immediate supervisor, for instance, the person you're working for, rather than seeing them as the person who just tells you what to do, understanding what their key focuses are and what they're trying to achieve for their boss helps you by allowing you to form a strong supportive relationship with that particular individual. And of course, when you're working in a large organization or in a small organization, often your immediate reports will change all the time. So you'll have to work with lots of different teams, but also with lots of different bosses from time to time. So those skills of being able to understand how you fit within the organization are really important as well. The other important thing is to be able to problem solve, of course. And this is an oldie but a goodie. Being able to see a problem from multiple angles and being able to come up with different approaches to solving that problem, or ways of maybe looking around the problem as well, and testing for that problem. Those are critical skills that a lot of engineers and software developers know backwards, of course. They're always working with problems of various types. In fact, sometimes a day for an engineer might just be one problem after another, so to speak. So being able to solve those problems in imaginative ways becomes like the daily the daily approach that you take. So those types of skills are really, really critical.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Sam. Dr. Sacha, would you like to add to that, the enterprise skills, or the so-called soft skills?
Yeah, so I think that was really interesting what Dr. Sam said about problem solving and also being able to think outside the box. And I think that increasingly, particularly with COVID, I think employers are looking for people who are really adaptable and, have this kind of willingness to have a go, try new things, learn from your mistakes, things like that. So in science, and I particularly send students out to pathology labs. So in particular, they might be microbiology labs, which are testing for coronavirus, or they might be anatomical pathology labs, which are diagnosing a cancerous growth. So in terms of that sort of work, an eye for detail, attention to detail is really important. Critical thinking skills, problem solving skills that we've already talked about. Time management is really important. That's another oldie but a goodie. And communication skills, as Dr. Sam said, I think we need to be able to communicate at all levels with all sorts of media and devices and things like that. So those are some things that work integrated learning or professional experience can give you, or can give you a sort of a boost in terms of learning those sorts of skills, because they are things that you do learn on the go.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And I guess, part of that learning at university also, working on different sort of projects, solving different complex problems or assignments, and trying to be creative to working towards the solution. I think that's very handy to get into that thinking habit. And I think employers are looking for that kind of skill. And, a course at UTS, whether it's a bachelor's or master's degree, kind of trains you to have that critical thinking, which is great to hear. And I completely agree. Communication is key, right? Doesn't matter what stage of the problem solving you're at, if you can communicate where you're at, what you're working on, what you're trying to achieve, that's essential. I have so I guess I've got another question. I think we've already touched on it. UTS engineering, IT and science courses does include work experience components. We've kind of touched on that as well. But how does that look like, Dr. Sacha? What does that involve? And I have a follow-up question on that, but we'll kick off with that. So how does that work experience component of UTS engineering in IT and science look like?
Yeah, so I can speak to the science part of things. And I'd just like to say that I think that the work experience or the professional placement that we run, it's quite unique. So not all universities are doing this. But within science, we have both internal and external placements. So we have something called the Codex, where you work in teams and you're partnered up with academic partners, and you form a company and you sort of develop solutions for that company, which are like real world problems. And the external placements are, one of them is the professional experience for biomedical sciences, which is the one that I run, where the students go to pathology labs for 4 weeks or 8 weeks, and always love it and learn a lot. And there's also science internships where the student themselves organises the internship, and then they go and do the internship with, and they also do some assessments, and so it's part of academic credit. So there's lots of opportunities there within science to get involved.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Sacha. Dr. Sam, would you add something?
So we've got a few different degrees, of course, so I'll try and run through them a bit quickly. The undergraduate degrees, we have a Bachelor of Science in IT, which has both a 4-year and a 3-year version. The 4-year version includes 1 year of diploma in IT professional practice, where students find an internship and do some work integrated subjects during that internship year to reflect on their experience working through that internship. We also have a Bachelor of IT, which is a scholarship program, which is very similar to that. And we have, what's the other one? Bachelor of Computing Science. In the Bachelor of Computing Science, this one's focused on a research project. So we mainly focus on linking our students up with researchers within the university. So it's not work integrated learning in the same way, but it's still focused on the planned career. So some students do find the computing science degree to be one of the options that they are looking towards. And so it's important to note that one doesn't have a typical internship in an organisation. Across in engineering, we have a 5-year version and a 4-year version of engineering. In the 5-year version of engineering, there's 1 year's worth of work experience, and that's required. That's in a similar type of thing, a diploma in engineering professional practice. That offers students an opportunity to get into the workplace and test out their engineering skills, and that's supported by a number of preparation subjects beforehand and reflection subjects afterwards as well, so that we don't just throw you in the deep end. We try and help you through that process. For the 4-year version of the engineering degree, because of the Engineers Australia accreditation, we do require 3 months worth of engineering internship in most circumstances. There are other versions of engineering degrees as well, but those are the main two. In the postgraduate space, there isn't such a focus on 1-year internships in the same way, but there are still a lot of opportunities available around the discipline for you to gather both experience in industry and also some work experience at various times. So on the IT side, I tend to suggest things like the Australian Computer Society's meetups. Meetup.com actually offers a huge range of meetups on very, very specific topics where you'll be able to meet and network with professionals on quite niche areas such as cybersecurity or learning experience, for instance, various specific technology related areas. And the same is true for engineering, I think. So those are some of the opportunities that exist, not all of them. There are probably some I forgot to mention, but those are the main ones I can think of right now.
That's a great story, right? I was thinking there's quite a lot of options, which is great, you know. And you say there's not, you know, there might be more. It's really interesting and exciting to learn that, you know, a lot of the courses have that industry based kind of experience as part of the degree, which is amazing, right? You're already prepared even if before you step out of the university, which is great. I guess one thing, you know, this is a bit of a challenging question because, you know, we are in a bit of a challenging times because of COVID, and a number of, and that's a question on our Q&A from one of the audience. COVID has had a lot of impacts. One of them is, you know, the borders being closed, and there are some students in Southeast Asia who haven't been able to come in, or, you know, have just relied on online learning. What does that mean for those students in terms of getting exposure to that industry-based kind of learning? I'll get please.
So I can talk to a few different things about this issue, and look, some of it's just unfortunate and we're not really able to control it at UTS, and there have been various attempts to increase the face-to-face opportunities for students that have fallen afoul of reality, unfortunately, and the rules that have been placed upon us. So we just have to go with what our government's health departments are saying at a particular time, and the border restrictions. But I do know that a lot of organisations have been adapting to the situation of having to offer internships in different formats, and they are very rapidly being able to take on students and provide them with the network access, and particular, in some cases, computers that they need to be able to work from home and to be able to onboard into that internship from their location. I can't speak specifically to the international experience for students who aren't in Australia, I'm afraid, but I do know for students who are in Australia but who are in lockdown, there have been quite a lot of successful attempts to solve that issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Sacha, would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, I think similarly, I can't comment on the international experience, but certainly with our internships, we, as I said, we send students into pathology labs, which are within hospitals generally. So they've been open the whole time. The only problem is that some of them are too busy to take students. So we've had to do a little bit of like shifting people to a different time of year to do their internship. But they will still be able to do it. So I think if people are interested, they could email science.international@uts.edu.au and specifically ask the question about internships and international students.
Perfect. And I think there's still a lot of flexibility around those options, which is great to hear. And I know Dr. Sam touched on those meetups opportunity, and I think it also is around the networking opportunities that's available on campus via different departments, and there's always so many opportunities to network with your classmates or outside of that in that wider area and find out about opportunities as well, right? Which leads me to the next question, and I'll probably start this with Yanlin. What student mentoring options are available to UTS students, Yanlin, or the network, access to networks and mentoring and kind of guidance? What options are there for students?
There are always options and you can explore it. So for example, for civil engineering or for engineering, there's a Lucy mentoring program, and also the uni provide the professional mentoring platform, and that's an individual platform. You can talk to the mentor, to industry expertise, and also professionals to discuss your concerns or maybe the question, and that's really helpful as well.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Having been a student myself at UTS and being part of that Women in Engineering and IT, I am a mentor in the Lucy mentoring program, as the one that you mentioned, Yanlin, and it's fantastic. And that's only one mentoring that I'm aware of within that Women in Engineering and IT forum. But I understand there's faculty-wise different mentoring programs available as well, and that opens up to international and local students as well. So that's great. I have a specific question to Dr. Sam around what are the differences between computer science and information technology courses?
Okay, so there's a few kind of definitions that are kind of Australia specific in some respects, but they also go to the difference in the focus between these two degrees. So generally speaking, information technology, as understood in Australia, is a broad umbrella term that covers most areas to do with computers of one type or another. So that will cover things like network engineering. It will also cover things like games development, media, web development, business analysts, and something also software development, obviously. And computer science tends to be more focused on particular areas to do with efficiency and the logic behind computers and programs specifically. So someone like Google or Atlassian or a large firm that offers software would be very interested in computer scientists, because they might be able to solve problems to do with efficiency and usage of resources that could save an organization like this a huge amount. When you put something on Google Drive, for instance, where does that data start from and end? How many hops does it go through to get to the place it's going? If you're going to search a large amount of information looking for something, what's the most efficient way of doing that? How do you find that information really quickly? Whereas someone who does the Bachelor of Science in IT would probably be more focused on a broad range of options rather than these very specific problems. They might be interested in something like managing IT for a supermarket, for instance, and doing a few different jobs within the area, so that they can make sure that not just one supermarket, for instance, but a number of supermarkets are all linked together and their pricing schemes all work together. So what I always say about IT is it's a very transferable skill. You can move your skills not just between different IT companies like HP, Google, other large IT companies, but more between, say, an airline or an NGO, a non-government organization, or through to things you wouldn't think of, like craft websites like Etsy or something like that. So you've got a wide range of places you can end up at if you work in IT. Computer science is a lot more focused, so you do end up with a higher competition for specific jobs. But by working in that area, you also make yourself very attractive. Our computer science course is focused on research. It has an integrated honours year. So it's a 4-year degree and you need to do an honours thesis as part of it. You get more maths and more computer programming training than you do in the IT degree. And at the end, you do some technology research preparation subjects, and then you do an honours project. You also do have opportunities for some more advanced styles of major, like quantum computing, which is quite theoretical, but very future focused and interesting. The Bachelor of Science in IT is a much more flexible degree. It's 3 years or 4 years, including the internship, and you have 1 year worth of core subjects and 1 year worth of major that you're focusing on. And then you have 1 year's worth of electives. So that gives you the opportunity to really craft that degree towards your specific focus. So you can take a sub-major in a different area alongside your major, or even 2 sub-majors, or even 2 majors in total. So you have quite a range of different options in the Bachelor of Science in IT, and that's a lot more flexible than the Bachelor of Computing Science is. You can also take an honours year with the Bachelor of Science in IT if you wish, but that's an option that you add on at the end. You don't. It's not an integrated honours year. So that's the main differences between the two. We also have a Bachelor of Engineering, Software Engineering, which is very similar to the IT degree in some ways, but also a bit longer and more aligned with the engineering curriculum. So that's something else to consider if you're looking into those options. Yeah.
That was really great. And while you talked about the differences between the two courses and how generalist you can be or specific you can be, but then you also talked about that those transferable skills and how each course would have a number of electives you can choose, so you can kind of hone into your interest. You've got your major interest, but you can kind of have that minor interest as well. And from my experience, I did electronics engineering in my bachelor's degree, and I did my master's in telecommunications at UTS. Now I'm a data solutions engineer. Within a decade's time, I've gone from an electronics, network engineer to being in cybersecurity, and then now in data storage platform. And so I think it is a journey. And you start somewhere, you start with something that interests you, and then you kind of experiment, isn't it? It is about experimenting and learning new things and transferring whatever you've learned so far.
Yeah, you don't want to know what my first degree was. Music. So I've taken quite a journey.
Yeah, and that's I guess we're diverging a little bit, but it is about that diversity in skills and talent and the experience and interest, right? Like I
Yeah.
think everybody brings in that individuality.
Yeah, I think employers and organizations in general are just really searching for those people with enthusiasm and interest in their area. And it's really easy to communicate that when you are actually really enthusiastic about that area. And those, the gauntlet of interview processes that you go through with these organizations are usually to find out whether you are actually interested in working in this area for some period of time, and the organization is right to put their resources into hiring you and keeping you on and training you. So I think that movement is really valuable because you're moving towards the things that you're actually interested in working within, rather than staying in the same area because that's where you started. So I think the movement is really good.
Yeah, thank you for that. I've got another question. Do we need any previous experience before studying a 5-year degree in Bachelors of Engineering? Perhaps I'll start with Dr. Sacha on this one. You know, what skills are required for entry to bachelor's degree?
So generally, I guess that we would expect that you had done some higher school certificate, such as the HSC, as it is here, but it would be the equivalent in your home country. And then really, I mean, we don't assume that you have a whole lot of knowledge. That's the reason that you go to university and you learn all of these technical skills and also the transferable skills as well. So yeah, I think it would just be the higher school certificate or equivalent from the country that the person's coming from.
Cool. And over to you, Dr. Sam. Did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, so I think it's important to note that UTS doesn't have any specific subjects we expect students to have studied necessarily, but there are specific requirements for completion of high school that are applied on admission. So when you apply to the degree, the admissions officer does carefully scrutinize your documentation. But in terms of the way we teach our courses, we don't expect a huge amount of knowledge in any one area and expect you to know specifically how to do things initially. We usually teach you, for instance, programming, we teach you from the very basics. We'll say, here are the basic ideas, and then we build from each of those basic ideas towards knowledge. We don't start with an assumption that you already know how to do everything. But there are those standard schooling matriculation requirements that apply differently for different countries as well, because different countries have different sets of curricula. So that's something I don't know off the back of my hand, but I'm fairly sure that the information in the handbook is usually quite specific about each of those cases.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Sacha and Sam, because it makes sense, right? Because you're coming in to learn. So there's going to be a level of, are you willing to learn? Have you shown the track record of learning and growing? But then there's 4 or 5 years of learning. And, the assumption is not that you know everything, because why would you spend 4 years, Yeah,
and I've had many students who have started from possibly a lower base than their peers, but clearly shown their determination, and they go, you notice, they're struggling for a while, and then they work it out, and then they really excel by comparison with their peers. So if you're determined to find your way into a particular course, you can usually excel in those courses, in my experience.
That's right. Yeah, fantastic point. There's enough runway for you to kind of catch up and then even get better, right? So that's great. I think we've had some really fantastic questions from the audience as well. I might ask the last one now, which is a really great question from Risky Ozan Ridwan. The question is, how do we it's a bit of a challenge to unify the 4 fields of STEM. You know, when we talk about science, technology, engineering, and maths, how do we unify those 4 components in the development of an attractive project in the industry? How do we bring it all together and, I guess, you know, prove that we've got this? Kind of, I think that's how I'm reading the question. What is a good project? You know, bringing all those 4 things together.
Gosh, that sounds hard.
I thought that was a fantastic question.
So I'm just going to jump on a hobby horse. I work across the creative arts as well. So I do a number of projects that both use technology and science, but also creativity in the arts. So sometimes STEM is renamed STEAM, STEAM. But I have a bit of a problem with that, because isn't that just about everything? What's left? So yeah, it's a bit tricky. I would say a lot of these ideas of science versus maths versus technology versus engineering versus design versus the arts. Universities tend to break things up into faculties, but you'll find all the academics working across the faculties all the time, because there is a lot of benefit in interdisciplinarity and working with each other. So sometimes it's not all 4, but sometimes it's 2, and sometimes it's across arts and science. But I would say always, you know, the techniques are very similar across all of the fields. When you get down to the details, they're quite different, but at the higher level, we're all just looking to find out new knowledge and communicate it to our students. So that's the general underlying aim of universities, in my opinion.
Awesome, thank you. Dr. Sacha, would you like to add anything to that?
Well, I think Dr. Sam's put it really nicely there, and I was just trying to think how you can actually separate them, because for me, as a scientist, I do research as well as teaching, as a lot of us do. How do I separate my science from the maths, which is the statistics that I need to show that a study, you know, is correctly powered? How do I separate that from technology, because of that's the machine that I use, you know, to get all my results, and from the engineering, which has built the lab which I work in. So I think that all of those things and work together all the time, and as Dr. Sam said, this sort of interdisciplinary collaboration is really important, because we can't just work in silos by ourselves. It just doesn't work.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Yanlin, would you like to add anything to that? You know, given that you've just graduated and stepping into that working world, having done internships, of course, but you know, that differentiation or putting together the 4 aspects of STEM, what's your experience been?
I guess maybe just like you're doing a group project in a uni, everyone can contribute what their advantage and bring something on board, and eventually create a very attractive project, achieve the potential outcome. So yeah, I think Dr. Sam and Dr. Sacha have mentioned a lot of the benefits as well. So yeah, that's just my pure understanding.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. I mean, yeah, I think we've got a consensus, right? It's all collaboration, isn't it? It's like the soft skills, like, you know, and how we become a person, a unique person, and the capabilities. How do we separate the elements that make us? And I think, you know, with science and maths being probably the base and everything else being built on top of it, it's probably collaboration of those different aspects and bringing it together. Because when you step in the working world, nobody kind of asks you to differentiate between, you know, how much have you done science versus technology versus engineering versus maths, because it makes the whole thing, you know, together. So it was a fantastic panel discussion. It's been such an honor to host this panel. Thank you so much, Dr. Sam, Dr. Sacha, and Yan Lin, and our future students, in the audience today. I hope you got a great deal of insights from the discussion and enjoy the conversation as much as we did creating it today together. It was, I love the interaction, and I love the questions that came up, and it did put us on a bit of a spot with here and there, but it's always fun. The questions to the audience, please know that the questions that we may not have had time to respond to during the live session will be answered via email within a week, and I think the next session details are in the chat box. So thank you very much, and everyone, and have an awesome day.
Thanks so much, Barsha. You've done a
Thank you.
fantastic job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barsha. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.